The salt wind whipped around Alara, tugging at the frayed edges of her shawl. She stood on the same weathered dock where, 10 years ago, her father had promised to teach her how to navigate by the stars. He never returned, swallowed by a rogue storm, and the town of Port Blossom had been whispering ever since. Not just whispers of loss, but of blame. A fisherman's daughter shouldn't question the sea, the mayor had sneered when she asked for better rescue equipment. The sea takes what it's owed. Alara carried that sneer like a stone in her gut. Port Blossom was a town built on stubborn tradition and fear. They worshipped the unpredictable tides, seeing any disaster as a divine decree rather than a failure of preparation. After her father's death, Alara swore she would prove them wrong. The sea didn't demand sacrifice. It demanded respect and science. She spent the next decade in libraries, not boats. She studied hydrodynamics, meteorology, and the history of tidal surges. She built models, charting the precise, predictable patterns that the superstitious fishermen called moods. Her notebooks were filled with complex equations that mapped the rogue wave that killed her father, a freak convergence of currents and bathymetry, not divine wrath. When Alara returned, she wasn't the broken little girl they remembered. She was a woman with a plan, backed by a small grant from a coastal defense consortium that appreciated her data. She started small, installing sophisticated sonic buoys miles out in the deep water, capable of reading the subtle shifts in pressure that preceded a major surge. The fisherman laughed. Marcus, the handsome young man who had once tried to comfort her and now led the traditionalist bloc, was the loudest. "Still chasing ghosts, Alara?" he called one crisp morning. "Your gadgets can't stop the tides." "No," she replied, her voice steady and clear, "but they can't warn us." The real test came a month later. The where Alara was monitoring her data feeds when the alarm sounded, a rare and massive deep ocean disturbance, signaling a powerful surge that would hit Port Blossom within 6 hours. The traditional warning signs the fishermen relied on, the shift in the wind. The cry of gulls would not appear until it was too late. Alara ran to the town square, ringing the century-old bell herself. The fishermen grumbled, eyeing the perfectly blue sky. "It's a false alarm," Marcus yelled, rallying the men. "That cursed machine of yours is broken. We have boats to mend." Alara didn't argue. She pulled a projector onto the mayor's porch and cast a holographic map of the ocean onto the square's cobblestones. It was a beautiful, terrifying visualization. A deep red wave, mathematically certain, rushing toward their harbor. "I can't stop the sea," she said, her voice commanding the silence, "but I can give you 4 hours to secure your boats, move your families, and save your lives." A few of the younger families, remembering Alara's reputation for intelligence, moved immediately. The mayor and Marcus watched, their faces hard with skepticism. But as the hours passed, the sky began to darken with alarming speed. The wind shifted violently, and a distant, ominous roar grew on the horizon, the sound of the approaching tides. Panic erupted, but Alara was ready. She directed the frantic evacuation with calm authority, pointing to the higher ground she had already designated on her map. Marcus, seeing the devastation already beginning at the far edge of the harbor, finally understood. He looked at Alara, shame and shock etched on his face, and immediately began directing the remaining men. The wave struck with the force of a battering ram, submerging the dock and flooding the lower town, but the damage was minimal. No lives were lost. The community was shaken, but safe, thanks to the 4 hours of grace Alara's science had gifted them. In the aftermath, the whispers stopped. The townspeople didn't gather to mourn. They gathered to help. And to apologize, the mayor, soaked and humbled, presented Alara with a key to the renovated dock office. "We thought tradition was strong enough," he admitted. "We were wrong. You saved us all, Alara." Alara finally allowed herself a small, tired smile. She looked out at the churning yet retreating ocean. "The sea takes what it's owed. She repeated the mayor's old words, but today, it owed us nothing. We simply had the foresight to ask nicely. She took the key. She hadn't tamed the ocean. She had tamed the town's fear, and in doing so, finally brought peace to her father's memory. The girl who lost everything to the tides had returned to become the one person who could finally read them. Would you like to hear a story about a futuristic detective or a historical mystery next?